Do you love freedom? Do you love being clean? Then you'll love Hero Soap Company, made in the USA. Chemical and fragrance free. A portion of each purchase donated to veteran and first responder charities. Initial subscription purchase is matched bar for bar and sent overseas to deploy troops. Let freedom clean. Hero Soap Company.
Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm Chris Matthew. Today I'm joined by Cory Hughes. This is going to be a new daily news show that will eventually be happening every day. It's called the Forbidden News Update. This is going to be our introductory show. Basically, I find for my segment interesting stories from around the world, stories you probably won't see in the big news headlines, but I feel they're worth talking about. And Cory is going to give us the magical COVID report with their magical numbers. That'll be an interesting segment. Cory, how you doing today?
Good, thank you.
All right, before we get started, I'd just like to thank My Patriot Supply. If you're ever going to get an emergency food supply, right now is definitely the time. You can get $70 off a 2-week and $100 off a 4-week supply of emergency food that stays good for 25 years in storage, and it tastes great. Just click the link in the description or visit preparewithfkn.com to get your emergency food supply today. And be sure and listen to Forbidden Knowledge News on all your popular podcast platforms. And leave a review on Apple. It's always nice to get good reviews on there. All right, today I'm just going to start with a story we came across yesterday. We're working on this. On Sunday, President Donald Trump said in an interview with Fox News that he plans on looking further into U.S. intelligence on the existence of UFOs. He was asked about the Department of Defense's announcement that the Pentagon launched a task force, he loves that task force, to investigate sightings of unidentified flying objects in August. The group is called the Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force. And I love this. This is his reply when he was asked the question. Well, I'm going to have to check on that. I mean, I've heard that 2 days ago, so I'll check on that. I'll take a good, strong look at that. And I love that response. That's just a classic Trump response. It's also a classic presidential response because we've heard so many presidents over the years saying this exact same thing. They're going to look into the UFO. We get the statements and then crickets, nothing. Now, although there has been a lot of news and coverage and even talk from the Pentagon lately about UFOs over the past, even almost going on 2 years now, I always look at the source it's coming from, government and the mainstream media. Do you trust what the government and mainstream media is telling you? I don't trust anything. And also now we have, the TTSA, which is their spokesperson is a former punk rock star, Tom DeLonge. So yeah, we should listen to him too about that, I think, right? I don't know.
Well, being a punk rocker makes you an expert at at
UFOs,
military affairs and stuff.
Oh,
right?
Definitely military affairs. I would think so. So what do you guys think? If you leave anything in the comments, any thoughts, any questions you have about this story, what do you think about that, Cory? We got the Space Force coming up. We got talk about all kinds of UFOs. Do you think it's just maybe possibly an excuse to roll out some toys that we've had for a long time, or what? What do you think is going on with that?
No, I think that's pretty doubtful. Whenever I hear the government talk about UFO stuff, I just think that is them trying to pull our focus to something while something else is going on. So I think that's it's just misdirection. I don't touch upon UFOs almost ever. And I don't think that the government through Trump is going to come out and tell us the truth. So.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we're ever going to have the truth, especially from any, government or officials or anything like that. I do see a lot of interesting things happening behind the scenes in the community of UFOs, actual real researchers that have been researching the phenomenon and coming up with some interesting theories and even facts about UFOs. But I don't think we are anywhere near understanding what is really going on with this. And I think we're far from it. But like I said, I've had my own personal experience lately that has changed my mind a lot about a lot of things. But still, I think that we're a long way from disclosure. Next, we got. I'm not going to be discussing anything with our magical COVID numbers today. We'll leave that to Cory. But I just want to bring up an article I read about the future of the workforce as it's related to the new COVID age. There is a massive trend towards automation, roboticism, and AI. This global event is definitely accelerating this. Now we have automated cashiers, pharmacies, gas pumps, bank tellers. Everything is moving online, including our education system. So our kids are going to be taught by robots too. More and more people every day, of course, losing their jobs to machines. As long as our government and media continue to push this pandemic, of course, obviously, the more jobs we're going to lose, not just because of the robot thing, but because of the whole fakery that's going around. It is killing our economy. It's killing our country, everything. Then we have the Internet of Things they're working on. They want to take over with everything. Like I said, our kids are going to be learning from AI online. Although I don't see any immediate threat of like a singularity or AI taking over the world or any Terminator situations. I think that things are progressing very fast when it comes to the development of AI and these technologies. And I think the real danger is losing our human workforce and the economy and everything that we're going to have to go through for the transition of this robotic age to come forward, which personally I'm not looking forward to. What are your thoughts on the this roboticism and automation taking over, Cory?
No, I think we're a long way from Terminator.
Oh yeah,
I think that a lot of the damage that will be done has already been done. It's already automated, all large-scale manufacturing, vehicles, things like that. Now, I don't know about you, but when I go into McDonald's, there's always that automated teller there, right? You can go up and just order your own food, and they call you when it's ready. I've never used one of those. I think those are kind of an excuse to start to get rid of employees at like the ground level. And I think we'll see more of that. So it's going to be very slow. All of a sudden there will be a McDonald's with nobody working in it. And you'll be like, when did that happen? So it's going to come on much slower than people think. It won't be a sudden overnight thing.
yeah. I think the automation thing and the roboticism will be slow, but the loss of jobs is going to be so quick that they'll probably be scrambling to get this into place, and we may actually see a lot of this sooner than later. I do see a big trend towards this. This was like a perfect opportunity to roll out all kinds of new surveillance technologies, just things that would basically tighten the rope around our necks when it comes to technology. So that's something to look out for, and I think there's plenty of dangers with what they have in mind. When you put technology in the wrong hands, of course, it's always going to go to the darker side. But
that really makes me wonder, because there was a lot of talk for a long time about facial recognition software and cameras popping up everywhere, and how does this face mask thing fit into that? That to me is a little puzzling. Do we have two warring factions here, the facial recognition crowd and then the mask crowd? I mean, I don't understand how to interpret that.
Yeah, from what I've heard, they've got facial recognition so accurate that it can tell who you are because of your eyes. You don't even, you can be wearing a mask and it'll still pick you out somehow. So that's kind of terrifying. Just that whole surveillance technology that we're coming across.
Then we just need to wear costumes all the time with full masks, full everything, right? Wear a cape.
Right. Yeah,
I think this is getting ridiculous. This is just over the top ridiculous is what's going on right now.
Yeah, our cell phones are completely monitored. I mean, you're not doing anything. If you think you're doing anything in private on your cell phone when you're doing it, you're not. Google's got you. We've all got you. So we're entering our new age of surveillance, and
I want to go back to pagers. Pagers and like the old Nokia cell phone.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, technology is something we got to look at. Next story I have, some legislative bodies are taking the opportunity to outright censor speech that they don't like, basically. Several bills have passed, others are pending, and this is globally. It's actually started in Germany with the censorship saying that, some speech is dangerous now. So we got to end free speech. And it started spreading around the world. So let's see, several bills have passed, others are pending. One was gutted from the court review, but all represent new fronts in government efforts to impose censorship. It's happening globally, but here in the US, we definitely face our own speech and privacy threatening legislation. One of them is in the form of the Eliminating Abusive and Rampant Neglect of Internet Technologies, or the EARN IT Act of 2020. Now, the legislation, which was introduced in the House of Representatives last month, is presented as it will protect children from the dangers of child pornography on its way to threatening platforms, which is wonderful. Protect the kids from the porn. That's great. But the EARN IT bill would also allow small website owners to be sued or prosecuted under state law as long as the prosecution or lawsuit somehow related to crimes against children. Now, there may be all kinds of ways to connect that, but the bill also creates an advisory commission on internet best practices that will be dominated by Attorney General William Barr and law enforcement agencies. Barr's view on internet best practices is well known that he wants to break encryption and let police read every message sent online. This worldwide wave of censorship legislation piggybacks on, of course, pandemic-related concerns about the quality of information and safety of communications available to people confined to their homes. It has also been passed by legislatures empowered by health-related states of emergency. Yet again, this crisis eases the way for governments to accumulate powers that would face, of course, greater resistance in happier normal times. So how do you feel about this, Cory? How do you feel about our new wave of censorship that's on the way?
Oh, of course I don't like it, but I love how they throw the child porn in there. Now, child porn is a problem. Yes, it's not this rampant taking over the internet problem that they're making it seem to be. They like to make mountains out of molehills and use that as the excuse, just like they're doing with COVID. COVID is bullshit. The numbers are so low, as I will demonstrate today. But yet they're right now in the phase of ramping up because of this new spike, which I'm about to debunk. So, yeah, this whole thing is a sham, and they look for any excuse. But fortunately, there are always companies, services, hackers, whatever, staying one step ahead of the censorship and providing you email or messaging or other platforms that will basically usurp any laws that they have. If you're concerned about your internet traffic, use Tor, use the Tor network, use a VPN. There are ways to protect yourselves that they'll never be able to get around. And then really, ultimately, it comes back to the courts, because these will always end up in the courts, and then the courts make a decision. And that's why these judges are so important, right? So if they get the Supreme Court, that's one thing. Most cases don't ever make it to the Supreme Court. It's the state courts, the state Supreme Courts, where most cases live or die, really. And so when he came into office, there were like over 100 federal state court positions. You know what I mean? Federal positions throughout the states. And so why Obama didn't fill those, who the hell knows? But they were left wide open for him to put whatever crazy he wants in there, right? So once they have all the judges, lawful bills can get squashed because of some lunatic interpretation by whatever judge he wants to put in there. And they can put anybody there. They don't have to have any kind of legal background, So that's the scary part. And there's very little control. We have very little control over who the judges are. You can vote at the local level. I don't think you can vote at the state level. I'm not too sure about that. I might be wrong. But the higher up you go, the less control you have over what judge is sitting there.
Yeah.
So we didn't get to pick any of the Supreme Court judges, did we? No.
Yeah, it's
So
like we were talking about the other day. Once you get to the state level of these politics, it's bought
yeah,
and sold. You can't. There's no controlling it. There's more control at a local level, even though it's still somewhat. But yeah, we need to. I think we need to start working from the local inside out on these censorship issues. Um, it's getting terrible.
yeah. And honestly, the older I get, the more interested I am in participating in some kind of state government or local government. We're looking at going out to Colorado and looking at what's going on in Denver and who the councilmen are in Denver. Most of them really a bunch of local nobodies, which is good. But there are a couple people on that council who have parents connected to the Gates Foundation and Colorado power brokers, and so
Yeah,
yeah, they slowly infiltrate the local governments. But it's kind of hard to, like, when you're a millionaire, you can't go in and represent the hood. You know what I mean? You're not going to convince anybody. So there's a limit to what they can insert into local governments because locals know, hey, you don't represent me. So yeah, local elections are important. I think that's the only ones we have any actual say in.
right. I agree. Now, my final story of the day is actually kind of goes along with the whole censorship thing in a way. I don't know how many of you out there are supporters of the QAnon movement. I myself, I don't follow it. Every once in a while, I'll take a look at it. I wouldn't call myself a Q supporter. The information at times is interesting, at times can be compelling, but I really think it's an op. Personally, that's just my personal thoughts. But they're definitely getting a lot of mainstream attention now. According to a recent article read from the Washington Post, they are an umbrella term for a loose set of conspiracies ranging from the false claim that vaccines cause illness, and they're a method of controlling the masses, to bogus assertion that many pop stars and Democratic leaders are pedophiles. Now, this was from the Washington Post, a quote from there. Yes, we all, if you paid attention to the QAnon movement, you know what it's about. Basically, we have these white hats hidden in the government that's working with Trump to take down the cabal and take down pedophile rings and all these, bad people that are in politics around the world, in government, in deep state activities, basically taking down the cabal. That's what is going to happen because of QAnon. So then the FBI has warned that it could very likely motivate some domestic extremists to commit criminal, sometimes violent activity, and is also being called a cult. Now, even though I don't follow Q and I don't agree with a lot of it, I do think this goes back to free speech and freedom of expression. The world leaders are adopting this view that freedom of speech and expression is now dangerous, and that needs to go, man. That's not what this country is supposed to be about. To me, this is just more control, suppression, and oppression of the government, telling us what's best for us, what we should listen to, what's harmful to us, because we are obviously incapable of making our own decisions about what's bad for us and having our own thoughts and opinions. So we need the media and government to do it for us, because basically we're little idiot children that can't do anything for ourselves, right? So also the younger generations and many are actually agreeing with this censorship, this free speech elimination. I'm not saying all young people, but there are a large portion of the younger generation that is wanting to eliminate free speech and does consider it dangerous, which I think is completely ridiculous. But that's just my own opinion. So, what are your thoughts on this one, Cory?
Well, touch on QAnon. QAnon is definitely an op. Plain and simple. If it wasn't, somebody would be in jail and they would have made an example of them already. So to me, that one's pretty obvious. So I don't even bother listening to what they're saying at all. It's completely irrelevant. Trump laundered money for the mob for 20 years. Trump is so dirty, it's not even funny. I mean, he's connected to the Mossad, the Genovese family, the Russian mob. That says it all. And these are very real crimes, not conspiracies, and yeah, everything that's going on is a joke. Our politics is a joke. Our country was lost with Kennedy. That's where I will always stand. So it's the time for revolution is long past.
Definitely.
And they've done a good job of hindering us from ever organizing. All these tactics that they're employing are divide and conquer tactics. And that prevents us from ever organizing against them.
Yeah, Yeah.
That's the frustrating part. People fell for it, you know.
Yeah, that people definitely fell for it. Yeah, I guess I'll just close out by saying, don't watch the mainstream news. Do your own research. Look for alternative news sources. Go with what resonates with you, and go with your gut feeling, because usually that first gut feeling is the right one. If you think something's screwy, take a second look at it. Do as much research on it as you can on your own. And we got to start at a local level to make some changes. So, maybe start being more active in your local community, expressing your disgust with what's going on around you. That would be a great place for us as a nation to start, I believe, with some of these issues that we were just discussing. So that being said, we're going to turn it over to Cory to get some of this wonderful COVID information about this horrible pandemic that's destroying us and killing everybody. And you got to be scared and wear a mask and stay in your house.
Yeah, so this information is just updates to the numbers, comparing it somewhat to some of the propaganda. And really, inherently, you'll see that the pandemic is over. I don't know why the news hasn't reported this yet, but I will go ahead and I'll screen share and I'll go over the facts with you. Okay, so this is, and I'm not even going to try to debunk their numbers, right? We're just going to use their numbers for this. There's no point in then trying to debunk these at the moment. You get down to next to nothing, right? The numbers would be virtually zero if I actually spent the time to debunk the numbers. So I'm just going to use their own numbers against them. Currently, we have, and the important number here of all this is 2,339 cases of COVID per 100,000 people. That is the key statistic here. The overall total cases, 7.7 million, 214,000 deaths. Those are bunk. But like I said, we're just going to go ahead and run with that for today. Now, on this graph here, there was two particular points that really caught my attention. And that's where those two black lines are. And that's because when you look right before April 18th, they declare pandemic and then the pandemic takes off. And you start to see this like tapering off curve, right? And right when it gets to the point where it looks like it's about to, kind of plateau, that's when the numbers ramp up again. And then 2 weeks later, they ramp up again. I think that what happened in reality was that the numbers were plateauing. And so they couldn't allow that to happen. And it was plateauing. When was that? It was the beginning of July, right? Beginning of summer. And that's when flus and these types of illnesses don't really affect us much. Nobody ever talks about the flu in the summer because the heat and the lights kills the flu virus. Therefore, it's not an issue. But they had to keep it an issue. So it looks like right as they started realizing the numbers were tapering, they had to give them a bump. This is trends in numbers of COVID cases reported in the U.S. to the CDC by states and territories. This has been on a downward slope since the beginning. I guess this little bump here post July 15th is the second wave that they were all freaking out about. But as you can tell, it's not really much of a second wave. And if there was a second wave, it is definitely on the way out as per this chart. So the most important thing, like I said, was the number of cases per 100,000 people. So that's 2.3% of the population allegedly positive cases. We've already heard that as many as 90% of those may be false positives because of the type of test they're using. Well, influenza affects 3 to 11% of the population every year, as per the CDC, right? So even in this pandemic, more people get the flu, way more people get the flu every single year than the 2.3% that we currently have with alleged positive cases, which probably are not accurate.
There must not be too many people actually looking at the CDC website because...
No, not at all. This debunks the entire freaking narrative. This debunks the entire narrative.
There's so many people
and this is their numbers.
Still blindly believing this bullshit. They can't be looking at this.
Yeah, and the thing that's amazing is I got this from the CDC website. This is their numbers that they're telling us, okay? This is the most important part of this whole thing, right? So 65 deaths per 100,000 people, and that's with their BS inflated numbers, right? So the total USA death rate is 0.065%. That is their statistic, all right? Now, when you look at the propaganda, COVID was like 0.82 to what was that? I can't see that second number, of course, but it's high as hell, right? So total propaganda, it's way above measles, cholera, and all this other stuff, hepatitis. And so then when you go down and you look at influenza, influenza is typically up to 0.1%. Well, the current COVID-19 is at 0.065%. Again, below influenza. This is from Wikipedia, but might as well be from the same place. So as you can tell, the propaganda is very strong on this one, right?
Yeah, 0.012 to 1.08% was the COVID numbers.
Yeah. Yeah, it's disgusting. Those are just outright lies. But they do say preliminary estimates in parentheses, like that forgives them. No, it does not, because they don't have to estimate, because they have the numbers, because these are the numbers they are reporting. The trend has been downward since April 16th. Like, very downward. That second wave in August was, I bet you those numbers are all fake. I don't even think there was that second wave.
These numbers could even be wrong too. We could be looking at nothing.
Nothing. Exactly. I think that's what we're looking at. But I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Today I'm suspending disbelief, and I'm going to believe them, right? With their BS numbers. So look at this is what I thought was pretty incredible. So between ages 0 to 29, it's a 0.7% of the COVID deaths. 0 to 39, 2%. 0 to 49, 5.2%. So really, if you're up to 50, there's only it's only 5% of the total deaths. The 94.9% of total deaths came in the age group of 50 to 85. Okay? So this damn thing kills people, just like the flu. Old people. That's what the thing is. It's the flu. If it exists at all. Okay, and so the pandemic began way back there, around, it looks like mid-April past the 21st. But we are back down by their own projections at or below the numbers before the pandemic took off. This is as of yesterday. I pulled these numbers yesterday. So that means the pandemic is over, doesn't it? We're back to normal again. That's how I interpret this chart.
Yeah, the numbers tell everything you need to know. And when you watch the news, it's a completely different story, and that's all people are doing. They're not doing their own research. They're not looking at this stuff. And
I don't even consider this research. This took me like 10 minutes.
Right? Yeah, all you got to do is go online to the CDC website. That's it. This is for yourself. This isn't something that you put together and made. These is all just fucking from the website. It makes me so mad how many people are not even they're going along with it just because they're told by a politician or somebody on the news, and they believe it because they're programmed their whole life to believe what the news is telling them. This has got to be the most disgusting event that I've seen in my life.
And the thing is, I have found recently a lot of articles that have downplayed the flu and made it look like the flu is next to no deaths this year, and it's all lies. Since 2010, the flu has risen every single year, and to devastating numbers. Last year, 80,000 plus people died of the flu. This year, they cut off the numbers at 62,000. And that was in April. So how many more people died of the flu between April and July when the summer hit? How many? A shit ton. I bet you well over 100,000. And I bet you well over 100,000 of these reported COVID death numbers are from the flu. Because for some reason, they don't seem like they're outright lying. They're taking facts and then they're twisting them to where you don't even understand what they're talking about. And then they're taking things out of context and they're making it seem like it's way worse than it is.
Yeah.
But,
what makes me nervous about it is what we talked about it a little earlier is it's not working for a lot of people, even though the majority is still buying into it. How long can they buy into it with these actual numbers still coming out in their faces? It makes me think, what's next? We're going to have a brand new pandemic. They got to do something to keep people afraid of this. And these numbers aren't working. They're not going along with the narrative they're spreading. So how much longer can they keep going on with it before doing another event?
Right. And I went in yesterday to try to get the numbers of physical injury, how many people died in car accidents who had COVID, right? And all that stuff and all the BS numbers. And what they did was they reorganized how they present those numbers. And they have made it so complicated that you really can't go in and take that number anymore. You can't look for that number as easily as you did before, because I couldn't figure it out in looking for it yesterday. So when they have numbers, they don't want you to understand what they mean. They spin them and they divide them into different categories, and they add things that are irrelevant, and so you don't even know what you're looking at anymore. But I can tell you that the total number of deaths that were related to pneumonia with COVID is about 91,000. So even if that is true, they're telling us it's 200 and something thousand. It's BS, because all cases of COVID lead to pneumonia. 100%, right? That's reality. That's how this thing works. It screws up your lungs get pneumonia, you die. So the 91,000 number, if that is an accurate number, that is closer to what the real number should be. And like I said, I think the real flu numbers are way, way over 100,000. Way over 100,000. So this thing, it never measures up to the flu. Never measures up to the flu.
No.
Okay, so this is from the World Health Organization. These are infographics, and this is what infographics do. They tell you, hey, this is what's going on. They do it in a cute, kind of cartoony way, and it's pretty straightforward. And to reduce your risk of COVID infection, they say clean your hands, cough or sneeze into your bent elbow, avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth, avoid close contact with someone sick, clean and disinfect frequently touched objects or surfaces. This is a very reasonable list of things to do to not get sick, right? Just in general, not a single mention of masks anywhere on these infographics. So then you go to like the CDC's version of that, and it starts off by, know how it spreads, and it has some fear tactics in here. The best way to prevent illness is to avoid being exposed to the virus. Duh. If you don't want to be rained on, do not go outside. Hello, kind of common sense there. The virus is person to person, but they seem to add these little things that would change the narrative just a bit. And so the bottom one says some recent studies have suggested that COVID-19 may be spread by people who are not showing symptoms. This is where it really starts to piss me off. They want everyone to get tested for COVID, even if you don't have any symptoms. When was the last time that you felt fine and you talked to a doctor and a doctor said, hey, I know that you feel good and everything's great, but I think you may have the flu. You might want to go get tested for the flu. When has that ever happened in history? Never. Never. You know? No one ever said, man, I know you're looking okay. Your skin looks good, but you might have chickenpox. You might want to go and get tested for chickenpox.
Yeah, we got to get tested even though we feel fine, and we got to get the vaccine because we don't want to catch it, of course.
Right, because people who don't show symptoms can spread it. Okay, when you look at how the flu works, and you go to a doctor, and you go to the doctor to get treated for the flu, his goal is to make you better, right? He wants to treat you so you get better. He does not tell you, stay home and put a mask on and don't talk to anybody because my priority is making sure you don't spread it to anyone else. Never. He wants you to feel better. That's it. So once you got the flu, people have always accepted the flu goes around, you get it, you don't. And it kills a shit ton of people. This thing they have turned into the boogeyman, right? This is like the flu's retarded little brother. It's not doing what it's supposed to do. This is a CIA dud. It was supposed to kill a lot of people, but it didn't. So even the quality of the freaking CIA scientists is going downhill. Okay, wash your hands all the time. Don't ever leave the house without washing your hands. And then wash them right after you wash them to make sure you wash them right. That's pretty much what it says. Some of these really pissed me off. They kind of outside your home, put 6 feet of distance between you and yourself and other people. Keep distance from others, especially important for people who are higher at risk. That's old people, okay? So fucking old people, stay home. They shouldn't leave the house anyway. They're old. Okay, so here we go. Cover your mouth and nose with masks. So why is the whole world not telling us to wear a mask, but America is telling its citizens to wear a mask? You can spread it to others even if you don't feel sick. Do not use a mask meant for a healthcare worker. Okay, so they don't want you using surgical masks. They don't want you using the N95 respirators. And part of the reason for that, you shouldn't use those, is because they do nothing. They're ineffective. The whole purpose of the mask is that all the air comes in through the mask, all your exhale goes out through the mask. When you have a mask on where you're getting ventilation in through the sides, you are not wearing a mask properly, right? There does nothing. You might as well wear a freaking Halloween costume. Seriously. Okay, so will face coverings flatten the curve? I thought this is very interesting. This is from the Center for Infectious Disease Research and Policy. We have reviewed the many modeling studies that purport to demonstrate that cloth masks or face masks have the potential for flattening the curve or significantly decreasing the numbers. These studies fail to recognize several important facts. The filter performance of a cloth material does not directly translate or represent its performance on an individual because it neglects the understanding of fit. Cloth masks or coverings come in a variety of shapes, sizes, and materials and are not made according to any standards. Transmission is not simply a function of short random interactions between individuals, but rather a function of particle concentration in the air and the time exposed to that concentration. A cloth mask or face covering does very little to prevent the emission or inhalation of small particles, as discussed in an earlier SIDRAP commentary, and more recently by Morowska and Milton 2020 in an open letter to the World Health Organization signed by 239 scientists. Inhalation of small infectious particles is not only biologically plausible, but the epidemiology supports it as an important mode of transmission for SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19. So this BS wearing of masks is accelerating the spread of COVID-19, is what that last couple sentences says.
Yeah, that's so contradictory. I mean,
yeah.
The second you think about it, wearing a cloth mask on your face all day, how much crap does that pick up just because it's a cloth mask? I mean,
Yep.
you know, your spit, your breathing, any particles. You think that a flu or some kind of infectious disease is not going to get around or stick to or get stuck to that cloth, and you're not going to get it. So that's the most ridiculous thing.
Yes, and this is from an article directly from the CDC. When was this from? I believe this was referencing from a 2009 article, if I'm not mistaken. During a pandemic, cloth masks may be the only option available. However, they should be used as a last resort when medical masks and respirators are not available. So we just were told not to wear medical masks because they don't stop COVID. But then we're saying that these cloth masks are a bad alternative to the medical masks, which do nothing in and of themselves. So basically, between these two articles that are on the CDC website, they're basically debunking the whole mask thing. Don't wear a mask. That's basically what these things say. Because the cloth masks genuinely don't do anything except act as like a COVID filter, and you just get this big old wad of COVID just right over your freaking mouth and nose if you wear it.
But Cory, the celebrities are telling us to wear them, and they're making commercials, and everybody on the commercials are wearing them. I mean, that's cool, right? It's the new cool thing.
Oh, that Paul Rudd one was crazy. Yeah, you saw that one. That was the worst propaganda I've ever seen. If you haven't seen the Paul Rudd, it was Cuomo, Andrew Cuomo advertisement.
Right.
You have to go look for it on YouTube. You're just going to smash your TV after you get done. I'm telling you. So, all right, so current evidence suggests that multi-layered masks with water-resistant fabric, high number of threads, finer weave may be more protective. Several studies have examined filtration, but fewer have examined fit or water resistance. Surgical masks are normally rated for fluid resistance, and cloth masks should be too. Masks should be able to prevent a stream of fluid flowing at a pressure of up to 160 mmHg from seeping through the mask and potentially into the mouth. Furthermore, the degree of fit affects effectiveness because air flows in the direction of least resistance. If gaps are present on the sides of the mask, airflow will go through those gaps instead of through the mask, right? So this whole wearing a mask thing is absolutely and utterly an intentional destruction of our rights. It has nothing to do with health and safety. It is about fear, nothing more than fear. But see, the whole purpose of fear propaganda like this within a society is meant to welcome in the more right, the more fascist governments to save them from the situation, right? That's the whole point. That was done back in the strategy of tension in Italy. It was definitely done in Hitler's day. All of World War II, a lot of those countries, the fascist countries, utilized those tactics. And the United States is using those tactics as well. Why? Because, well, we taught the Nazis everything they know.
I want to read a comment I got in the chat here. Just want to address it. It's actually from Karen. She says, "Hey, Cory, I'm old. I won't stay home because the threat's not real. Old people aren't sick or frail unless they don't know how to care for their health or lifestyle." I agree, Karen. I mean, old is a state of mind. If you don't,
hey, I'm 72. I just look really good.
Yeah, you're an old fucker. So you need to maybe take it easy on the older folks there. But yeah. I agree. If you don't take care of yourself, whatever your age you are, you're going to get sick. So, as long as you're taking care of yourself, you can be 100 years old, go out and do cartwheels in the street for all I care.
Yeah.
It's great.
So at the end of September, Pence says Americans should expect coronavirus cases to rise in the days ahead. Like, are these guys psychic or is this all propaganda, right? So how do these guys know this? How do they know this 2 weeks before, any kind of data changes with the CDC's numbers? Beats me. So here's another one. COVID-19 cases rising in 39 states, 9 months into the pandemic. We are overwhelmed. Well, look at the chart where we're at with overwhelmed. That to me is hilarious. Right. So that's what did I look up there? I looked up that was one in one particular state or everyone. I think that one was everyone. I did a couple by individual states. Coronavirus cases on the rise again. Now that the summer is giving way to fall. So here we have an infection rate spike, and they're talking about New York, and so that's the spike. It's barely a blip on the radar compared to what we've seen already. Okay, and look at this pattern: dipping down in June, July, and August, and a little teeny tiny rise in early October. That matches with this thing is affected by the heat and sun, right? So,
are we going to see? You think we're going to see in the colder months upcoming that spike's going to go up because, of course, we're in colder months, so it's coming back.
Yeah, and people are going to go skiing, and all those ski deaths are going to be COVID deaths, and all the winter sports, all those people who die in winter sports, they're all going to be COVID deaths as well. So, all the people who get nailed by icicles, right? Something like 800 people a year get killed by falling icicles. Those will all be COVID deaths. Okay, so here's another one. This one shows outright manipulation of the numbers. So Michigan sees the biggest spike in daily COVID-19 cases since the beginning of the pandemic. Health experts fear it could be the beginning of a second wave. But I thought we already saw the second wave on the charts. Didn't do shit, right? I thought that was the second wave. Okay, look at these spikes. Of course, the numbers are going up at the tops. But when you look at the bottoms, they're balanced out by numbers between 20 and 40, right? So they're reporting thousands of cases one day, and the very next day, 20 to 40. So what happens when you average those 2 days? You get around 700, right? Which is below the threshold that makes this thing scary anymore, right? So this is 1,000. The line right there is 1,000. And when you average out the days that have these 20 to 40 cases, it brings it well under 1,000, right? So there is no new spike in Michigan. They are bullshitting the numbers.
Yep, and I have a prediction that the closer we get to election, the higher that those numbers on the chart's going to go.
I think if you want to murder somebody and get away with it, all you got to do is photograph yourself doing it, put the evidence on the internet, and then people will just be like, no, you couldn't have done it. That's the new norm. That's what they're doing to us now. They're giving me evidence of their own deceit, which I don't understand. What is wrong with these people? God damn. Drives me crazy. And then here we go with Anthony Fauci. He hopes that the worrisome numbers jolt Americans to take action. Right? What numbers? We're back to normal, asshole. Seriously. This is from the 12th. What is that, yesterday? Yeah, this is yesterday.
I'm so sick of seeing these guys, Fauci, Gates, all these psychopathic people.
Why can't these guys catch COVID and die? Seriously.
Right.
What an opportunity that would have been. All these old fucks in Congress. All right, dog myths debunked. Can I get a cold from my dog? This I thought was important to talk about because despite what they're telling you, COVID's not zoonotic. All right? It's not. It didn't come from no bats. It came from a lab. All right? They took bat COVID or bat coronavirus. I messed around with it using a guy named Ralph Barrick, who's funded by Beth Israel Hospital. And somewhere in that chain of custody of his experimentation, I have no doubts that some of the samples made their way back to Langley and Tel Aviv, and then from there over to Wuhan. I will never believe that this is the Chinese fault. Whoever's fault they're saying it is, it's usually not the case. So it's always them, always. Us and Israel and the cabal, always, 100%. So whenever something happens in the world, it's them. And how do I know it's them? Because if it wasn't, it'd be the first time in history. So yeah, none of this stuff ever points to anyone else. Ever.
Yeah, once you start looking a little behind it, you see the same players coming into.
It's always the goddamn Zionists and the CIA. Always. And so, yeah, so you really can. So COVID went from a bat to a person, and now it can go to dogs, right? Shit doesn't work that way. That's not how science works. And now here on the CDC website, they're just blatantly rewriting science. You know, they're telling you to isolate your dog if you think your dog has COVID. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. This pisses me off, you know, seriously. So COVID-19 and sex. Yeah, this has got to be the worst sex in the history of the world if you actually do it this way. You can have no kissing, use a condom and a dental dam, and wear a mask, and then wash everything before and after. That sounds like a fucking doctor's appointment. You know what I mean? Like, no chance. Like, this is BS. This is from the Mayo Clinic, right? So all these organizations that people once respected that are putting out this bullshit, like, just, they don't know what they're talking about, right? I'm starting to believe that this large scale medical journalism industry is just completely a fraud.
100%. Yep.
And every time I go to damn WebMD, I got some sort of horrific disease I'm dying from. You know what I mean? So got to be a connection there. So we're on track to have less deaths than in 2018. I don't have the 2019 numbers. Those were not released yet. But in 2018, a total of 2.839 million people were dead in the United States. That was only 25,000 more than 2017. So 2017 still had 2.8 million dead people throughout the whole year from all causes. That comes down to 236,600 deaths per month. And in 2020, so far, we've only had 2,188,554. That means even if you were to add 2 additional months for November and December, plus what we have now, you're looking at 2.661 million deaths in 2020. We are trending less deaths than in the previous years, despite a pandemic. You know, is there a connection between that? Did finally people actually, drink more water or do something right and are living longer and they're freaking out? Is that what this is? Is there a connection there? I don't know.
Very interesting when you step back and look at it. None of it makes sense. It gets more confusing the more you look at the numbers and everything like that. It's obviously manipulated, but you have to wonder to what extent and, which way is it going? Which way are they trying to sway the numbers? It's the most confusing psychological warfare operation. Mm-hmm. And I don't even think they know what they're doing with it. I think it's Correct. So compartmentalized that the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing, and they're fucking up. They're making mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, they've tried saying you can get COVID through your eyes. You can get COVID through sexual transmission. You can get it by, sleeping alone in bed at night with the covers over your head, right? So it's just, I'm sure aliens can give you COVID now too, right? So it's just ridiculous.
Definitely. If they don't clean the probe off before the next use, you will get COVID from the probe.
Yep. Yeah, but I mean, it just really pisses me off because no one's ever thinking about it. Everyone's like, oh, I have to get tested for COVID. Are you sick now? Then why are you getting tested for COVID, right? They want to test everybody. But if you tell somebody who was totally healthy, hey, I think you got the flu, they are going to look at you like you're stupid because that's how this shit works. And they are trying to rewrite science to convince people otherwise. And I am not overly pleased to say the least. And become very familiar with this word, treason. It is a crime of betraying one's country, especially by attempting to kill the sovereign leader or overthrow the government. Well, this is definitely what they're doing right now is definitely a crime of betrayal against our country. And these people are treasonous. And that is the solution on the right. They all need to go. Anybody who participated in this is a traitor to this country for multiple reasons. And that brings an end to the COVID update. Back over to you, Chris.
All right. That was great. Excellent work. I encourage everybody to go back and look at this again and tell your friends. Tell your friends to go to the CDC website and just look at it. Instead of turning on the news and getting terrified about what's going on around the world, actually look at what's going on. I mean, the real numbers that they're giving you, if it's real, because we don't even know if any of the shit from the CDC website is real, but they're telling us that there's no more pandemic. They're telling us that these numbers are so low. It does bring the big fear that all of a sudden in the next couple of months, they're just going to blow it up again because they haven't succeeded in this first round. There has to be, I feel that 2020 was kind of a kickoff for these guys. I think that there's this huge plan that they wanted to have in motion to bring in all these new agendas and more control. And I think it's not working exactly how they planned. So they have to do something else. I think we got a lot of big things to come if this COVID thing doesn't work. It just may be more COVID. It may be something else. Who knows? But there's always going to be something to continue this agenda, because they've already gone really far into it. And I know it's an op. Most people who are watching this show know it's an op. They can look back and see that it's a planned event, and they don't plan something this big unless they want some kind of huge outcome from it, unless they want to change society. That's what they've done with every major op in history, with 9/11, JFK. They want to change the course of history and have it go in their direction. And I don't think it's working right now. So we got to keep an eye on this and keep getting the information out there, definitely. Before I close out, let me see if we have any questions or anything from the chat. If you do have any questions or comments, please leave them now. Let me go see what we got in here. Do have a comment from Connor, says that the Jesuits are above the Zionists. What are your thoughts on that?
No, that's all I'm gonna say.
What's that? No, just okay.
Nope.
I got you. All right. What can you say about the Jesuits as it relates to the Zionists? I mean,
well, people connect the Jesuits and all kinds of stuff back to the Catholic Church, right? The Zionists infiltrated the Catholic Church 50 years ago. That's evident by people like Malachi Martin, and there's a whole bunch of others. Look into Malachi Martin and look into Malachi Martin's background. He is one of many who already infiltrated the Catholic Church. Catholic Church is controlled by the Zionists, without any doubt at all.
Right. Yeah. Whoever it is, they need to be
all these organizations.
Executed.
Okay, so let me just say that real quick, because I don't feel like getting into a history lesson today. But all those organizations that were around, secret societies and all this stuff, they were infiltrated. People don't understand the level and the depths to which the recruitment and infiltration by the Zionists has gone, and it has permeated every organization around. So if you got some organization been around since 1500, guess what? They're toast also. All these organizations have been infiltrated by the Zionists.
Fair enough. All right. Thank you so much, Cory, for your presentation. This is going to conclude this episode of the Forbidden News Update. Like I said, hopefully this will be a daily show. We're going to try and do it right now, as of now, until we can get out to Colorado, which should be hopefully in December. Right now, we'll do it hopefully a few times a week for you guys, and we will keep bringing you as much information as possible. Until next time, everyone, have an excellent evening.